Welcome to Vibrant Living Conversations. I'm your host, Gemma Pudding. As a life coach to midlife mamas and women, I'm excited to bring these conversations from North Idaho and across this region to support you on your journey to vibrant living, glowing from the inside out, fully living in your own true to you power.
For this interview, I am talking with Kelly Fabiano, founder and owner of Life and Death with Kelly. Kelly and I met during life coach training through the Beautiful You Coaching Academy, BICA, and both of our journeys have taken various turns since then. And I've been fascinated watching Kelly evolve her business into both life and being a death doula, to put it in her own words, to support the human experience. So welcome, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Now we've kept in touch on and off since life coach training school, right? Like that was such an experience, and your journey has kind of gone all over the place. So what's your elevator pitch of the work that you're doing now, Kelly?
Well, as a life coach, I support moms in reclaiming the pieces of their identity outside of motherhood. So I help them take up space in their own lives. And as a death doula, I support the dying and their care community by providing non-medical holistic support. And that can be, a myriad of things, all of the things, just to help take the load off their shoulders so they can be present for life and death.
How powerful. I love that. So what's your story, your passions, and your purpose in developing your business into cover both sides of this spectrum?
So my journey started with, it started with life coaching, death work, life coaching. I started working with a life coach during the pandemic. I was just at a place where I was really good at the career that I had developed. I was really proud of the work that I did, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I just wanted to explore, what am I doing here? I was a mom to two young children, still am.
Yeah.
They're still young. And I just felt, especially during the beginning of the pandemic, I was a teacher, a mom, and a career woman. And there was just no way to fit it all into one day. I was exhausted. And so I worked with a life coach to kind of dig into where my purpose lied. And death work came about. And in that, I was kind of forced to, in the gentlest, most lovely way possible through my death doula training, I was forced to kind of accept and face my own fears and beliefs around death and dying.
Hey, powerful.
And yeah. And it felt like once I faced my inevitable end, and that veil was kind of lifted, I had permission to live more fully and to take up space in my life. Right. And so as a mom to young children, it's really hard to do that.
Yes.
And that kind of developed into wanting to work with women in taking up space in their lives and live now, because we don't know when our time is up. We don't know, our end is inevitable, but we don't know when that's going to be. And if it's tomorrow, I want to know that I lived as unapologetically me as possible. So that's kind of how those intertwined.
I love that. How beautiful. I'm curious with the death doula. First of all, when that came up for you, like, this feels like something I want to work with. Did you just get online and search? Like, I honestly had never heard of the term death doula until I was following you. And I love that concept. Obviously, also having small children, doula is a word that, I'm like, oh yeah, someone to support you in childbirth. But then the death doula aspect of it, it's like, that is also such a pivotal time, obviously, like you're saying, that you would want to be beautiful and so powerful. So I mean, was it a Google aspect and you found a program that spoke to you, kind of like you did with Beautiful You Coaching Academy? I'm just curious how that worked.
Yeah, I actually didn't know death doulas existed either. And my partner was just like, I remember, because I was sitting in the couch that's right over there. He was at the kitchen table and he had mentioned that his friend had graduated from their death doula program. And I had never heard of a death doula. And so I looked it up and was like, oh my gosh, this is not only what I need to be doing, but this is who I am. This is a piece of my core identity. It just felt like it was a piece of me that was missing. And it was like lightning to the chest. I know I've said that a million times. But it really truly was, because it cracked me wide open. And, I'm the person that has the 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan, super over analytical, budget like crazy. I worked in production finance. So to just walk away from that is so completely out of character. But I felt so called to this work. I couldn't look back. It's like the version of me pre-death doula walked out the door. There was no going back. Yeah.
Amazing. It was something that you needed at that time in life to
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
get beyond the routines and the norms of just day-to-day life, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did they take you, I'm curious the gist of it, because obviously there's very different perspectives on life and death in general. And for me, it's come down to almost like a spiritual connection to trust or to be comfortable in this life and what potential the next life is, or all of that stuff. But I'm curious, as a death doula, how do they teach you in that course to hold space for people that maybe have different perspectives on life? I mean, I know that's a pretty epic question.
Yeah. I think so. The program itself was very insistent on not bringing your own lived experiences into the room, in a sense of to bring them into the room, but to not let them inform your interactions with the person that is dying in their care community, because we all come from different walks of life, have different spiritual beliefs, religion, faith, what have you. We've all had, most of us, I would venture to say probably everyone listening has lost someone, and that loss has informed in some way how they feel about death and dying. My biggest loss at the time, and still is my father.
Mhm.
And to really be able to go into a room and know that this is not, if so my first client was a man that looked a lot like my father, died similarly to my father, very similar cadence in his voice, all of that. And so I think that the universe was testing me a little bit. But going into a room and knowing, okay, this is not my dad. I'm not going to make up for what I didn't bring to the table with my dad, because he did the best I could. I'm not here to save this man, change this man. I'm here to sit with this man, hold space for him, advocate for his wishes. I hope that's answering your question.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I've I've worked with people from all different faith perspectives, from like a staunch atheist to a super heavily religious individual, and it's really just respecting that that's the part of their identity, that's who they are, just like any other piece of their identity.
Yeah.
I'm not here to change it, influence it, anything. I'm here to be with it and make space for it, enhance it, honor it. It's, you had mentioned birth doulas, and I feel like birth and death are two of the most sacred points in our life, right? And I think that is the time where my preconceptions, my opinions, all of that goes out the door. I am here to honor you, every element of you in this space, and make you feel seen, heard, respected, revered, and allow this experience to be as beautiful and expanding as possible.
Oh, I love that so much. That's amazing. And I mean, honestly, it's like life coaching is too, right? We can coach anybody because it's not about us. It's about meeting the person where they're at, honoring, respecting, celebrating the wins that they choose to take on, helping them work through the stuff. So I guess in that sense, all three, from birth, death doula, life coach, death doula, it's allowing someone else to come in and hold space for you, support you, ask you powerful questions, for you to open up and connect to what's important to you in these times. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I feel like you just drew the most powerful parallel. I think that my life coaching training prepared me to have these conversations and to hold this space. And that was really where I got the skill set of not bringing this isn't I'm not telling someone what to do. As a coach, you know that. You're not telling someone what to do, you're not prescribing a life for them. You are supporting them. You are
Right.
advocating for them. You are the person, that they carry along with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
good. Oh, just thinking about, I think a lot of us went into life coach training. A coach said this to me since we've done life coach training, but she was like, you're living outside of your body. You're living to serve other people, which I think is very much the Western woman in a lot of senses. Like we have to remind ourselves to get back in our body. She said to tell me to like live behind my own eyes, which I still get shivers because it's so powerful of thinking like, I get to serve myself first. I fill up my own cup first. I align myself first so that I can show up and be the woman, the mom, the employee, the friend, the partner that I want to be. But I think until I went into that, I thought I was going into, I keep doing it, honestly. It's a lesson that I'm still working on learning. I keep going into these courses to teach other people, to serve other people. And as you get into the learning, it sounds like you with the death doula and Baika, the work, doing the work for you realize it's for yourself. Like as you start to
Mhm.
train to be all of them, you have to dive within yourself and figure out where your healing needs to happen, where you've got thoughts that aren't serving you, where you're stuck in past scenarios that don't have to be truth anymore, whatever it is. So it
Mhm.
sounds like you've done it with death doula now and life coaching. And I'm curious, has there been ahas, and you've mentioned this a little bit already, but the ahas in having those two ends of the spectrum, reflections and inner work, that have supported you now in living more fully? So what is my actual question there? It's just how are you living differently, I guess? Like what has changed in your actual day-to-day from doing all of this work for yourself?
I try to live each day with death in my pocket. So to accept and respect that this day is a gift, as cheesy as that sounds, and that I don't know that there will be another.
Mm-hmm.
And having that lens, it sounds like it would put me in a very like fearful place, but what it does is it allows me to have permission to be more present, to not just get through my day, but enjoy and live through my day.
Yeah.
Even and that, translates to parenting too. A lot of it is like the kids come home, it's homework time, it's dinner time, it's this bed, and then I get to breathe. But if I can remind myself that, you know, if this is my last day, how can I be more present doing homework?
Yeah.
Not always fun, right? But how can I find joy in doing homework and watching my 5-year-old giggle or smile and kind of lock that in my memory bank, or how can I enhance this day just a little bit to make it worth leaving, you know?
Yeah.
It's really that's what I try to do. In the very beginning I didn't have to try as hard, to be completely honest, because that my when I went through my death doula training, it was like my life was blown right open. I was exposed to all of the elements, everything. It was kind of like I was on this like pink cloud, I was in
Yeah.
this great period of acceptance and freedom and I just felt liberation everywhere. And it's been a few years. And so I think it's quite common to settle back into what was. So now I have to be a little bit more conscious about it, but I'm hanging on for dear life because it really has changed my life in such a positive way, and I I don't want to go back to what it was before.
Yeah. Well, we're still in this world, right? So I think it's keeping yourself excited about all of the things and your values and the fact that you have two small children and staying in that gratitude moment. But then this Western world that we live in, or the world that we live in, not the Western world, there's a lot going on. Like we were talking before the call, just in all of the roles that we play, and even in your life coaching, helping women be, I'm using my own words here, but it be in their own power so that they can feel like they're part of the mix. It's so easy to, you wake up in the morning and something immediately needs to be done, right? It's like, okay, am I making breakfast? Where do the kids need to be? What needs cleaning? Where are my clothes? Look, right? You're just immediately, you can be immediately sucked into the needs of the world, worldly things, unless you implement these like little moments throughout the day to be like, okay, I'm going to get up 10 minutes early to be into my own body, to connect with source or whatever your thing is, right? It's like, it's those tiny little things throughout the day to, I love having this perspective of the death aspect too, because for me, it's been for so often, it's been for so long, it's been focused on like, I'm living life fully. Like I refuse to go down without living life fully. But having that end of the spectrum too, we could all die in the next minute, right? And how you define life and death, because I think there's even a lot of people out there defining death as a burden, and life as a burden, death is scary. So when you're going through life with those definitions in your pockets, ooh, right?
Yeah.
That's not a
Yeah.
great way to live. So you're helping people flip that on their head, and life is beautiful. Let's live it to the fullest. Like we're here for a reason. Like we're surrounded by amazing people. And if we're not, let's get with a life coach and make that happen. And death is just a beautiful closure on that life. I mean, anything you'd add there? That was a whole spill.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, so I'm trying to, what you said about life being, can be a burden and death is scary. I think that both of those lead to rushing through something or surviving through something, and then avoidance. Those are the two ends, right?
Yeah.
And so what I see in mom life and in death is a life where you're just trying to get through. And then when you're through, someone's gone. Someone, so I just had this conversation with loved ones. Yesterday I was on I had a consult with a woman who is dying, and her entire family was on the call. They wanted her immediate family, her children, they wanted to support her through this. And, you know, what I see so often is, and what I did in, when my father was dying, is you just push through it. And then my dad died, right? So we survived through this burden, this fearful experience, and then he was gone. Words that I maybe wanted to have said weren't said.
Yeah.
Time wasn't spent. I was doing, not living and being. So I think that keeping those shifting, like you said, turning it on its head, can really make space for true connection. If it's in life coaching, true connection with ourselves, with our partners, with our children, with source, whatever it is, true connection, because that's what I think life's all about.
Yeah.
And in death, that true connection, vulnerability, and just reverence to the process.
So good. And I think also observing how you're going through each day and feeling at the end of it, because I feel like there's a lot of human beings out there that don't know that there's another way to live. Like don't know that running through the day, getting done, check, 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 crashing on the couch at the end of the day, nothing wrong with crashing on the couch, but from a like you said, I made it, ooh, over, success. Like there is another way to live. Like there's a way to be in the joy of the chaos. Like, and especially I think, I don't know about you, but so many of my girlfriends, getting pregnant was not easy for us. We wanted like kids so badly. And of course, like we've been on this, like, we're going to be successful career women the first
Mm-hmm.
part of our life. And we made it. Great. We made it. And then we get to midlife and we're like, we want children. And then no, it doesn't just happen, because your body's stressed out and your mind is all over the place and you want it to happen immediately. So then you have kids, and then it's into the next chapter of like, oh man, kids are a lot of work. Like, I'm tired. I need, you're like, what are we doing to ourselves? Like, all of this is things that we've actually kind of created. We wanted to be career women. Okay, now we realize maybe that wasn't all that it was cut out to be. So we've learned our lessons. We're going to pivot. We're going to find more fulfillment in choosing a different career or having children and being in the beauty of raising children, and but enjoying getting our mindsets and just into the ability to enjoy the chapter that we're in, because in some way,
Mm-hmm.
shape, or form we've created it.
Yeah.
And if our mindset's off about it, of course we're going to be in survival and blah mode, right? And that's just,
Yeah.
there is another way to live, everybody. There really is. And die, like you said, like
Yeah.
you're scared and go in a depleted or not beautiful way, but like there's a different way. There's people that can help support and hold space and help
Mm-hmm.
you navigate what you want that to look like. It doesn't have to be something that happens to you. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
powerful work, Kelly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that's it speaks to me to societal conditioning and expectations. And the thing I try to be mindful of is that's all going to change. Just like fashion changes, just like the political everything changes. It shifts and changes throughout time. And so if we're trying to fit ourselves into an expectation that's quote unquote in for this decade, this time in our lives, knowing that that's not going to always be, that's not what it's always going to be. And it's difficult though to break the with that conditioning, especially because not we don't see a lot of people doing that. And the people that we do maybe are revered as like heroes or extra special, like, athletes and movie stars and, all it's the level of like, oh, well, I'm not them. I'm just me.
Yeah,
But we all get to do that. We all have unique gifts and they don't necessarily fit into a prescribed box.
right.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know about you, but with me, there's everyone's a very strong word. Counselors are a commonplace thing in our society. Life coaches, in at least in my world, aren't a commonplace thing. And the difference that we've seen between counseling and life coaching, let's focus on life coaching, it's very like proactive, forward thinking, setting goals for the future, moving forward. But in people kind of look at me like with two heads and like, I don't need support with that. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I need support with that. Holy cow, like all the things like going around in my head and all of the ideas and stuckness and blah, blah, blah on both ends, excited and frustrated. Having someone to facilitate your, okay, but where do you really want to be going in this chapter? How do you want to feel on the
Mm-hmm.
daily basis? Is this thought in your brain actually serving you, or should we pluck it out and redesign it? Like, a life coach, a death doula, anyone, even a counselor, like holding space for you to get all of that and not have to live life alone. I think for the first part of my life, I was very stubborn. I'm like, I've got this. I've got my own back. I am a strong woman. I don't need anybody. And it honestly wasn't until coaching academy, and then I had my second kid, not even my first kid, that I started to allow women in, like, to support me and hold space so I didn't have to do it all for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
that cracked me open on a whole different level, being like, we are one, like this, find your people, like they're out there that
Mm-hmm.
want to support you and support you in supporting you.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
was huge for me too.
Yeah. And I feel like that's in a way, almost more powerful to ask for and accept help and be part of a community than it is to have your own back
Right.
and, do everything in isolation. I think it takes a lot of bravery to, and I wish it didn't, but it does for me. It's really hard for me still to reach out and say, I need help. And every time I do, I feel so held. I feel uplifted. There's a tremendous, maybe power is not the right word, but it feels like it is. Like
Yeah.
there have been times in my journey with motherhood where I've needed my sisterhood. I've needed other moms to hold me and be with me in this process. And I, when I actually allow that in my life, it feels so much more powerful than doing it alone.
Yeah. Completely agree. Completely
But then
agree.
you go in it, you're like, I've got me. And I feel like we've got ourselves. That's like an effort to be powerful and
Right.
harness our own power. But being vulnerable can be tremendously more powerful than that. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense,
It
but
totally makes sense. And I think also cracks is open in that we're not alone in whatever we're going through. Because I think it's so easy to think like, I'm the only one that's this way. I'm the only one that struggled with this. I'm messed up. Right. And we put these walls up. But like you said, when we're open up, when we're vulnerable, it's like, I'm struggling with this. You can connect, not because you're looking for answers, but so that you can just connect in the
yeah,
vulnerability of like, you're not the only one that's been through it, and not diminishing that you are going through it, but connecting and like being able to shine love into that from a place of knowing. Like,
yeah,
so good.
yeah. You feel, I think it's like you said, yeah, it's not, well, I've been there too. So, you know, I can't think of the phrase, but you know what I mean? Like
Yes,
poo
I
poo
do.
on you. Whatever. It can be such it can be such a comfort to know that you're not alone. It's
Yeah.
not just you. There are people going through exactly what you're going through or something like it. And I feel like I feel more heard when someone's been through what I'm going through because I know they get it and
Yeah.
I feel gotten. I feel understood in
Yeah.
a way that I don't always feel if the person has not gone through a similar situation. So,
Well, I just finished reading a book about tribal nations, and there were so many instances in there where the women were in tribal ceremonies together, just women, like holding space for each other through different parts of the month, right? Through the cycle, through all of the stuff that specifically women go to. And they came together time and time again to support each
mhm,
other. Like, that's what so many, I think, has ancient societies did.
mhm,
And more, we are getting isolated and stuck behind computers or social media, thinking that we're connected. We're not connected via computer, right? Like, it's not the same thing as like sitting next to someone and hugging them or just sitting with them. And
yeah,
I don't know how that's going to come full circle, quite honestly. Like, I believe everything does, but with all of the technology, having that level of realization that we need true community, we need to be able to like touch and be next to and like literally feel someone's energy to be able to hold space in that same way. And that it's important, like being isolated and all being in our own homes and working from home, which I totally do, but it's different than going into an office or
oh
seeing
yeah,
people on a daily basis. It's not the same, and acknowledging that we have to pivot in other ways to make sure that we still get that sense of community and connection and vulnerability. Like,
yeah,
whole new world.
yeah. We can't do this in a vacuum. I mean, we can, but I just think it leaves so much room for maybe not the healthiest thinking or it reminds me of bell hooks All About Love. She discusses that like parenting outside of community can be I don't want to say detrimental, but that we need our community because we need our sounding boards. Like we need
Yeah.
people to provide that mirror or just that gentle reflection so
Yeah.
that we're not doing everything from inside our heads, because that can be a very dangerous place to make moves from. I mean, at least for me,
Yeah.
my head can often be a dangerous neighborhood
No,
that one should not
totally.
travel alone. Yeah.
Well, and that's another case in point, right? Like ancient civilizations, literally parenting did take a village, and that was honored and awesome. And supporting humans through life and death was a ceremony and a celebration.
Yeah.
Like they had it figured out. And now we're like, oh, but now we're all independent human beings. And we're like, but
Yeah.
we're more like mental health is more of a struggle than ever before. Like we're more disconnected. We're more everything that Brene Brown talks about, just pulled apart, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, I mean, it's just a new world that we're navigating. And how do we support each other and connect and realize the value in doing that and allowing ourselves to find people to hold space for us. Oh, so I'm curious. I know it's going to be two different scenarios, but for death doula and life coaching, do you want to give us, like, what do people expect in a session? How do you hold space for them in those two different scenarios?
Mm. Well, so my death work is different. I do offer sessions for people to kind of face their fears around death and dying, process them, and ask themselves, what does a good death look like for me? Outside of that, and those can be really powerful. They're very much like life coaching, to be honest. That's basically what it is coaching through that session. Death work looks like a million different things. I mean, it can be anything from doing laundry to,
Interesting.
creating a legacy project with the person that's dying. I had a gentleman who was writing his autobiography. And so supporting him through that, it can be really anything non-medical that the family or the person dying needs just to take up more space in the
Love
process, And in coaching in general, I, I take clients through a series. So either 6 or 12 sessions. And we start out with a few really powerful goals. I am here and I would like to be here, and come up with a, plan for getting them from point A to point B. That's kind of what,
Right.
and then, as far as I guess the logistics or the nitty gritty in holding that space, a lot of it is staying grounded and remembering that you are there to hold space, to actively and curiously listen, to reflect back, and trying the best you can to remove yourself and your preconceptions from the picture. I don't know if that
Well,
answered.
yeah, no, that was
Okay.
good. I have two questions. What
Mm-hmm.
are you finding? I mean, like you said, we're all dying. So in a beautiful way, but at what point are people reaching out to you to be a death doula? Is it people that are like, okay, I know I have X amount of time to live, or people that are just more elderly and they're like, I don't know when I'm going to go, but let's just do some work together and wrap my brain around what I want this to look like? How's
Mm-hmm.
that?
So I support two different kind of stages in life, I think. One is advanced planning, and it's not just wills and trusts, which, by the way, I'm not a lawyer, so I cannot facilitate that legally.
No desire.
Nope. But getting those ducks in a row can be really important. It can be a huge weight off your shoulders. I have a trust now. I have an estate plan, and that was a huge weight off of my shoulders just to know that it's taken care of. But on that front, you have a presumably rather healthy individual who has many years to live, not not actively dying, not given a prognosis, where they want to look into what a good death looks like for them. So I hold workshops called Good Death Workshops. And that's a bit like death coaching, where it's what has informed your fears and beliefs around death. What does a good death look like to you? And we'll do like a really beautiful death meditation. This all sounds very morbid, but it is not at all. The amount of smiles and warmth in the room, I swear it's just something you need to give it a chance, because it's beautiful. So there's that end. There are people that are curious, death curious, that want to lift the veil that want to stop walking around with the elephant in the room, acknowledge it so that they can have the freedom to live their life. And that was me, right? So there's that piece. And then when it comes to being engaged to be a death doula, usually it's either the person themselves has been given a terminal prognosis or a family member will reach out. And I've supported just family members and not the person that's dying before as well. I just had a client, I supported her through her father's death. Her father didn't want to work with a death doula, but she did. She wanted to be able to show up for her father in a way that she felt proud of at the end of the day. Kind of like coaching, if you think about it. Like, how do I show up for my life and this piece of my life in a way I can be proud in an authentic way? So yeah, that's kind of normally how I've been engaged. Now I'm new. I've only been doing this for, oh my gosh, well, 3 years now.
That's not new.
It still feels very, very
Yeah.
new. But that's how I've been engaged in the past or present or
Yeah. With life coaching, you said you mostly work with moms, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a mixed bag, actually. I've worked, I would say, mainly with women identifying folk, but not necessarily mothers.
Okay.
But that's my, I'm so I think it's like goes back to what you had mentioned. I know that I'm not willing to let go of moms, but it is really hard for mothers to say, this isn't working for me. I want more out of my life, or I want to take up space in my own life, because we're taught that that's selfish. We
Yeah.
can't do that. So I can't tell you how many moms will go to a workshop and then after it come up to me and say, this was beautiful, but I'm fine. Okay.
Interesting.
That's
Yeah.
that's it, and that's great. I just want you to be more than fine, but
I completely agree. And I think, I mean, I'm on the same path. Like, I believe so deeply in me showing up as me first and then being able to bring my full cup, cliche, I know, but to everything else, including my children. But it's been a struggle, especially like one child, no big deal. Two children, like all of my time could go to all the other things. So I've had to be that much more intentional over the last couple of years, that much more intentional, very. And I've been all over the road and how I've like where I've been, like I've had times where I'm like, I have literally no time for anything else. I'm just going to embrace this. And not that I don't love embracing it, which I think is part of it probably too, right? That guilt of like, I don't even know this guilt, but just it's so easy to be absorbed into whatever the main thing in your life is. For us, it's children, I know. But knowing like there's some tickling in the back of your head that's like, but I don't want to look back in 10 years and be like, well, I gave up my workouts and now I eat junky food and I stopped going to the classes that really brought me joy. Like, I believe there is a cross, there's a way to live for both of them. Would you agree with that? And I would love for you to talk a little bit about your experience in that too, because I know you have two boys.
Yeah, I 1000% agree with that. I think the alternative is, putting all of the other pieces of you on a shelf for who knows how many years, 18, maybe less. I don't know. In my head, it's 18, probably more, honestly. and then what do you do when if my entire identity is wrapped up in being a mom? That is who I am. That's 100% of me. Well, when that child leaves and is living an independent life, when I look at that shelf, all of those pieces that I discarded, I don't know that it's going to be accessible or easy for me to pick them back up and integrate them back. I feel like I've watched that happen to the generation before me, where you were only a good mom if you sacrificed yourself for your kids. You gave up everything for them. That's what made you a good mom. That was how you got your gold star. And then your kids grow up and they move on. And then you have this reckoning. And so like my goal is to prevent that,
Yeah.
for myself.
Mhm.
I want, when my kids leave the house, I know it's going to be an adjustment,
Right.
but my hope is that I'm not dumbfounded. I'm not looking in the mirror and going, well, who am I now that they're gone? Because I was someone before they existed. I was an
Yeah.
entire whole person
Yeah.
before I had my children.
Right.
And I need to be an entire whole person outside of being their mom,
Yeah.
you know?
No, totally. I think it is, what definition of motherhood do you want to live? And I think it's,
Mhm.
what definition of life do you want to live? What definition of death do you want for yourself? Like, stepping back and asking yourself those very powerful questions will define how you show up in those roles. And I think for you and I are talking from the same page, is that motherhood is one of the hats that we wear in our life, but we exist without any hats as us
Mhm.
who are passionate women to help people on their healing journey live their best lives, those things. And our kids are obviously here to teach us powerful lessons and crack us open. But one of the lessons, like, I'm learning lessons in so many channels of life, they are one of them. And it is beautiful and amazing. But in my definition of motherhood, it's not that's all consuming. It's, I am here standing as an aligned, working on being aligned daily woman,
Mhm.
from like my physical body up to my spiritual body. And from there, I can bring myself to all of these different hats that are a part
Mhm.
of me, but are not me. And that
Mhm.
is the definition that I will live. And I know there's different opinions, and, we've had, yeah, there's been generations that have raised amazing kids, but where we're at right now, that's what I am choosing for myself and making actions to be that way.
I love that. I think that's beautiful. So beautifully worded. And it gives me hope.
And it's a
Uh,
daily showing up, right? Like, it's
oh,
a
yeah.
daily, like, what are my thoughts? Where are my actions? Where's my energy going? And not from a lack, like, from, like, you have to choose to be excited about all of it, because it can all become a burden and work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want my life to
Absolutely.
be burdened. I don't want that belief either. Like, yes,
Yeah.
living fully takes showing up with all your energy and your smiles and your sadness. It's not like a total joyride, but
Right.
being willing to do the work, which is what we're here to support people in doing.
Yeah. And I loved what you said about letting children crack you open, because that speaks to letting this new piece of your identity expand you
Yes.
versus shrink you.
Yes.
It's not substituting like out with the old, in with the new. It's, well, now I am also this. How do
Yeah.
I integrate this into my life? How do I become bigger? How do I hold more versus, oh, well, all of that other stuff has got to go
Right.
until this is completely, it's never going to be complete. Motherhood is never over. I mean, God willing, it's never over, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just part of the lessons that we're being taught, and then we need to. Because, yeah,
Hmm.
before I had kids, I was very shut up. I was very, like, independent, internal, never cried. Now I cry all the time. Right. Like, it literally has cracked me open, and physically, in all of the ways. But there's other things in my life that are also doing that. And
Hmm.
on the many lessons that I am still yet to learn in this lifetime. So,
Yeah.
so good. Is there anything else that you want to add on about your work, death, or life, or anything else before we dive into how people can find you?
I think just that, through this journey, when people are going on this journey of, accepting their mortality, or, taking up space in their own life, which really are two pieces of it's two sides of the same coin. It really truly is, that it is okay for it to be messy, and that it's okay if the pendulum swings a little too far the other way. Or, with me and motherhood, it's been a journey of, I was suffocated and not taking up any space, to maybe taking up all of the space. And I found myself like, I have an aversion an actual physical aversion to being around other people's children for the most part, which
Interesting.
is very, it was odd that happened. I lend that to say that I realize that what's happened is I'm finding my way through this, right? And I've swung a little over here. I can feel it. I can feel
Right.
that this is just a natural part of the process, and I'm going to make my way back to the center.
Yeah.
But this is where I am, and that's okay.
Right.
I don't want to shame myself for it. And I put it out there because it's a very, odd thing for a mom to say, other people's children make me nervous. I don't like being around kids. It makes me uncomfortable, but it's what's true for me right now.
Yeah. And owning that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing though, just like death, just like all of
Yeah.
it. If we can just own it, if we can just allow it to be there,
Right.
it's there anyway.
Yeah.
So just let the pendulum swing as it may. It's going to be
Right.
messy. This
Right.
life is messy. You will find your way back home to yourself.
Yes.
Give yourself grace. Give yourself
Yeah.
compassion, freedom to do it wrong. There is no real wrong. You'll
Right.
find your way. But
Right.
it's messy,
Yeah.
and not always linear. Like you said, you have to remind yourself to be in alignment every day. It's
Yeah.
not, you don't just wake up hearing the birds and just like, one with the world. Maybe some days you are, and that's beautiful. And then sometimes you have to really work hard and struggle for it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
messy.
Yeah, it is. And having those just your rituals and your go-tos in place, right? So when you're
Yes.
having those days, you're like, okay, but how do I like reminding yourself to come back home to yourself, having tools that allow you to come back home to yourself. Like that's part, and I don't know about you, but in midlife, like that's what it's become for me is it's not a crisis. This is not our midlife crisis. This is our midlife awakening or midlife alignment. Like in midlife, we get to be confident women because we know what works for us. We know what doesn't work for us. And not everyone does. This is the work that I am doing, is like supporting women being like, let's figure it out. We've already lived a few decades that like, let's look back on what was working and what wasn't working and where you're feeling a little off and come back to center and come back to center.
Yes.
From that like powerful inner wisdom, not external wisdom, like that's it. This is our awakening time to really embrace like 20s, 30s. We learned a lot of lessons, but now it's like having that, putting the glasses on, finding the clarity in this is what's important to me. This is how I want to feel and show up on a daily basis. Like, boom, so that your pendulum starts to swing less and less. Hopefully, that's my goal anyway. Like,
Yeah.
right? It's just right here with me on a daily basis.
Yes. I love that. It's powerful work that you're doing. Very powerful work.
Honestly, it's right now, it's like as much for myself. It's like, that's what I need to, Yeah.
100% agree.
So good. So Kelly, how do people find you? What's the best way if they're interested in working with you?
They can go on my website, which is lifeanddeathwithkelly.com.
Okay.
Go on there. I have free consultations. So on both sides of the coin. So yeah, if you're death curious or life curious or anywhere in between, just book a consult and we can chat.
Nice. And you've been on several podcasts too. So there's other conversations you can listen to of Kelly's wisdom and fun. Yeah, your Instagram is super fun to follow too. I'll link that as well, just to get little snippets of Kelly and what she's all about and how she brings support and light to this world. So
thank you so much, Gemma.
Yeah. Oh, hugs. Well, I like to end with the question. So my definition of vibrant is glowing from the inside out. So I'm curious, are there people on your journey that have really inspired you, like 2 or 3 different organizations or people that have inspired you on your journey? And you don't have to name names. That's
So I would say, and this may sound weird, but the first person that came to mind is the adult librarian at our public library. She is just such a such a light of a human being, so curious, and has, afforded me the opportunity to hold workshops about death and dying and just being in a community. And that's just really been such a light to my life. I have a client that I work with who has moderate Alzheimer's, who has really taught me how to live in the present. And it's such a beautiful gift that I would not have gotten in the way that I've received it without knowing her. Third, I think, is it corny to say my kids?
No. No,
I
not at
feel
all.
like, I wouldn't be where I was without them either, and they are kind of like that magnifying glass of, they find joy in everything. And that
Right.
lens, having that youthful lens is beautiful. So, it's not all butterflies and cupcakes, let me tell you. I feel like we are on the struggle bus a lot, but I am so grateful for that lens, because it's almost like getting to redo childhood a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
And
right.
Yeah.
Oh, yay. You're awesome. So powerful. Yeah, I just excited to keep following your journey and everything that you're doing in the world. It's awesome.
Same here with you. Thank you so much for having me. And I could just talk to you for hours.
I know.
We can't do that right now, but yeah.
But we'll continue to.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Kelly.
Thank you.
If you like this podcast, I want to invite you to coach with me. Let's ditch the autopilot living to slow down, tune in, reset, and redesign your life to glow from the inside out based on the beautiful being who you are, what matters to you, and how you want to dance through this life. I help you understand your self-sabotaging ways, program thinking, and tendencies to outsource your power, and reshape them to align with the true you for this chapter of your life. To join me in a complimentary coaching session, go to my website, www.gemmaputty.com. Sending all the love, light, and vibrancy. Until next time.